It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west.
Three, two, one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another fabulous, yes, I said fabulous, episode of the Unnamed Indie Comic Show. Are we ever going to get a name, or are we just forever going to be unnamed? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. Joining me, as always, is the real star of the show, Skip and Tosh. How you doing, my friend?
As far as I'm concerned, it's extremely masculine to say fabulous because I was reading ENIAC and Matt Kent wrote a backup story in there, and it was titled something related to fabulous, and right in the credits it's like ENIAC writer Matt Kent, fabulous writer Matt Kent. So I'm doing fabulous myself. Ash, how are you?
Awesome. I'm doing good, man. I have been waiting to do a show. We got a little bit delayed, I think. We had a delay with the criminal cast. It's tough, man, dealing with real life. It'd be nice to just do this for a living, get paid.
Oh yeah,
and then you wouldn't have to have real world get in the way of things. But hopefully audiences can be forgiving on that, and hopefully everyone's excited to be here too, and talking about the best comics that are being published, and that's indie comics.
Damn tootin'.
What do you everyone, you got to make sure you have a beverage. Hopefully you guys all in the audience found a nice comfy seat, or if you're at work, hopefully they provide you with a comfy seat, and if you're on your feet, I guess hopefully you got good shoes. But have a beverage always. I'm drinking, whenever I read comics that are worthy of extending your pinky, I always drink a beer that requires you to extend your pinky. So I'm having a Stella Artois. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it properly, but I'm not French. So what do you got tonight?
For consistency's sake, I didn't want to let anyone down. So I've got my, not my Cool Blue, but just because Gatorade either A, likes to confuse people, or B, got two flavors going on with two different names, I got myself a Fierce Thirst Quencher Blue Cherry Gatorade going on tonight.
Man, that Gatorade is going crazy with the names. Back in my day, it was just Gatorade. Oh, and we got Fruit Punch. Now it's like a whole sentence to describe the flavor.
Yeah.
But I got recently, speaking of Gatorade, I don't know how. I got recently hooked on these Monster, what are they called? Hydros. Monster Hydros. I don't know if you've heard of these.
I have not.
It's by the Monster Company, and it's water. Well, they call it water, but it's not. It's more like a Gatorade. But it's basically energy Gatorade is the best way I could describe it. It's very fruity flavored. Man, it may not be quite as potent as a flavor because it is water, so they're trying to make it, but it's too strong to be water flavor, like flavored water. Maybe not quite strong enough to actually be like a Gatorade, but it's really close. It's really strong flavors. It's probably not quite as good as Gatorade, but it's an energy drink, so they got to put all that energy crap in it, and then they got to mask the flavors. But they had them at the dollar store, and so I was like, oh, I bought like every flavor. It was like $1, you know, and they come in like 22-ounce bottles, like kind of like the Gatorades. And, I just find them like when I have to get up in the morning, like I don't really. Sometimes I resort to drinking an energy drink, but then I feel like, and I was like, I don't know, but these are really good. I just can chug down a water, helps refresh me, and now I'm kind of addicted to them. So,
how long did it take?
Like 3, I think. I think by the third one, I was like, I gotta go back to the store and get more.
Hey, it must be pretty good. I mean, I'm curious now. I'm definitely gonna give them a shot next time I'm in 7-Eleven or AM PM out here in Northern California. I'll have to give one a shot and see what I think about it.
They're probably not worth the full price, you know, because those energy drinks, they always charge an arm and a leg. Like, I don't know if I'd pay, well, you know, but for $1, I was like, scoop them up, put them in the basket.
Definitely.
Yeah, the dollar, man, I'm addicted. You know what I'm talking about addicted? I'm addicted to the dollar store. Like, you think like, oh, it's a dollar store, that's just cheap. Dude, they got, like I said, they got Monster there, you know? I'm like, I'd be paying $3 a piece for these in the store, or I pay $1 at the dollar store, you know? You can get so many good things there. The problem is, of course, you can't guarantee what you're going to get. But, man, I get bags of dog treats for my dog. You know, I get bones. Dude, I don't know. If you don't have a dog, you guys, you don't understand the ridiculous price of bones. Jesus.
How much are bones?
Like, you could pay like $10 for just like a cow shin bone. Like,
really?
You know, like that's maybe like, I'm trying to think of a way to, you know, it's maybe the length of your cell phone and about maybe like an inch or two in diameter.
Okay.
You know, like just a thick bone. Because my dog, she's got really strong chewing. She'll like, if I get her like any sort of thin bone, she'll just destroy it and eat it. So I have to get her like something really strong that she can like gnaw on for days, and you know, and those things are like $10 a piece.
Wow.
One of the best dog treats, in my opinion, are pig ears. But you buy a bag of pig ears, it's like $15. And I'm like, this was trash. These are the parts of the pig that the slaughtering plant, you know, or whatever, is like to toss away. And like, oh no, don't toss those pig ears away. We can sell. Dude, you know, I don't pay that much for bacon. You know, like
yeah,
the premium part of the pig that they got to like cut up and then cure it and do all this work. But dog treats are through the roof. And it's because they know pet owners will pay for it. They'll pay for it. Yeah. Well, anyways, we're not here to talk about that stuff. Today's a new comic book day. Did you get any new comics? Have you been reading any new comics since the last show, or just continuing on with good comics that you're just, you know, continue to be happy with? What's going on in your comic world?
Yeah, got some comics today. Reading plenty of good comics. Unfortunately I didn't fulfill all of my list today. One slipped through my fingers, and it is a reminder to me to make a pull list at a store, at my closest store, not my main LCS that I go to, but I grabbed Silver Coin number 5, which this one for the Silver Coin series that Michael Walsh has been doing with friends of his in the comic world. He had Chip Zdarsky and Ed Brisson and a few others, Kelly Thompson. This particular one, this is the 5th in, well, I guess final for this arc. Friend of the show, Nalo, shout out to Nalo, let me know that Silver Coin did get upgraded to an ongoing series. So I guess the end of this arc is number 5, and Michael Walsh is writing and illustrating that one. Frank Cho is doing a book called Fight Girls over there at AWA Upshot. Artisans, writers, and artists. That's a mouthful. And so I grabbed issue number 2 of that because issue number 1 tickled my fancy. And going back to the silver coin thing, I loved issue number 1 so much. They had a variant cover there that I hadn't seen, so I went ahead and I grabbed issue number 1, another issue number 1 of silver coin to my collection. And then outside of that, I finally finished reading Tankers to get current because number 3 came out. So I'll be going on Saturday. I found a shop that's a little closer to me that has Bad Idea Comics, and they had that, and they had the lot. I guess some of their lot, the lot number 2 got banged up, and I was like, well, I mean, like, I don't care. I'm not like buying it to collect it. I just want to like read it. Will you sell it to me? And he's like, yeah, the corners are just dinged up. I was like, all right, yeah, just like put it to the side. I'll come get it. So I got that coming. I finally finished reading ENIAC, and very satisfied with how that series went. So I can finally say I found a Matt Kent book that I did enjoy, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, very, very much.
And you're not on the Matt Kent train.
No, not really. I had read. Well, I got Berserker number 1. Like quite a few people out there, not interested in it at all. I had read a little bit of, the Valiant book that he did with Clayman, Rye. And I didn't really care for it. And was like, okay. But this one I enjoyed very much. And Nalo's been talking to me about mind management, with which the kind of synopsis for that tickles my fancy. So I'm gonna, after reading ENIAC, I'm going to give mind management a try. And I was at the comic book store today. The book that I didn't get was Blade Runner Origins number 5, and I was really enjoying that series. So something weird happened where some shops got theirs and some shops didn't. But this guy thought that I said Danny cover, and he was like, oh yeah, Blade Runner Danny cover. Like, we got it. So I drove like 30 minutes out of my way, and I got there, and it was Blade Runner 2029 issue number 5, that Danny cover. And he felt so bad, and he called around to other stores and couldn't find it. And I was like, well, I'll just search through your back issues. Found myself the fade out issue number 1, even though I've got like 4 of those. I grabbed this one because it was in super good condition, and I just love that Sting series so much.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Why don't I check to see if they've got any East of West here? Because there's only 1 through 10, and then there's 3 in the high 30s of the floppies that I don't have. I went over there. They had all the ones that I was missing except for 2 of the 30s. And so now I'm just missing 2 floppies to complete my collection. They even had second print and fourth print of issue number 1. And you bet your ass I bought all of them. Nice. So it was a pretty good new comic book day for me today. How about you?
Wow. Well, I didn't go down to the store today because only 2 books for me came out.
Okay.
And one of them is Daredevil, and the other was supposed to be Blade Runner Origin, but I'm hearing that it didn't really come out. I think RDV is in the chat, and he was saying it comes out next week. So I'm wondering if it's one of those things where the solicit's wrong or something, and I would have had to picked up 1 book. So I do sometimes swing by on Thursdays because I'm out on the road on Thursdays. So, so I didn't get anything, and I've been so busy and backed up and doing different things. I haven't read many comics at all. The ones for the show, of course, are my top thing. So we're going to talk about those tonight. But mind management is something that has been on my radar for a while, and I'm just like, those covers. I'm like, they're terrible. Like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. I look at it and go, this does not jump off the shelf to me. But everyone that reads it, everyone that like, oh yeah, mind management, and I like Matt Kent. So one thing I would say, don't judge him by Berserker, because keep in mind, Berserker's also Keanu Reeves, right? I think Matt Kent was brought in for just his professional writing skills. Yeah, and probably Keanu's like, I got this story I want to tell, but I'm busy with Hollywood and stuff. So I'll just here's the plot. You make it happen. Right. I don't know. I don't think it's like, hey Matt, want to write a story together? I don't think that happened, but I could be wrong. But yeah, Yeah, speaking of Berserker, the last issue of Berserker was not my favorite. I'm still really enjoying the series though, but I feel like it's spinning its wheels a little bit. That is one of the books that I read too, because I'm really into it. It's one of the first. So when I come home from comic book day, I got to read it, and I was like, man, it's still good, but I feel like it's just kind of rehashing what we've already covered. Okay, I get it. You kind of mentioned this a little bit. Let's move on.
Yeah, right.
So, but it does have interesting things to me. The reason I like that book is because I feel like it's a lot more than what it appears to be on the surface. Okay. Right? On the surface, I feel like, oh, it's this violent berserker guy who kills a bunch of people, and it's going to make for a great action movie. I think that's there for sure. I mean, that's all over it. But I think that there's an underlying tone of like, who is B, the berserker guy? Who is he really? Like, what made him? Why does he exist? The government trying to use him to try to figure out what makes him tick so they can recreate more of him, which, of course, that's a quandary. Like, should we really be doing that, playing God? Is he a creation of God or something, or is he something else? Like, I love mysteries. I like when someone can put, oh my God, I'm about to quote J.J. Abrams here for a second. the mystery box. Like, I like when you can put something, what's inside? The problem J.J. Abrams, of course, is he doesn't know how to open the box.
Right.
You have to give the answers. You can't be like Lost and just be like, we're forever going to ask questions. Like, no, I want to know. Like, the questions are fine. Like, tease me for a while, but then eventually you got to tell. I do feel like that we'll get that with Berserker. And I am along for the ride. So that's one of my favorite books. I'm really glad one of the books we're going to start tonight is Geiger. The latest issue is my favorite issue so far. Before we go into details, what about you? Like, of the 5 issues, how did number 5 stand out to you?
Yeah, enjoyed it very much. I think I'm thinking it's my favorite so far too. Trying to think back because I know I think 3 I was not as excited about when I was done with it. Yes, it was number 3 because I really enjoyed number 1, enjoyed number 2. I think number 3 kind of brought things down for me a little bit. Number 4 took them right back up, and then left us off to where we go at with number 5. Now that I just thought my way through, easily number 5 has been my favorite so far.
Right on. So before we get into Firepower, which I have prepped here on the screen, that's going to be, that's one of our tried and true. Gotta turn that off. Our tried and true books that we cover every episode if we can. And if you guys listening in are not reading Firepower, you're missing out. I'm not gonna defame you, but go pick up that prequel graphic novel. That's really the first issue. It's a strange series. It got released with a graphic novel first, but it's only $9.99 and it's 160 pages. It's huge. It's like 8 comics worth of material. So imagine buying a mini series of 8 comics, but it's only $9.99 for the whole deal. And it's great. It is the best thing that I read in 2020. Got me really excited for the comic series, which started off a little soft for me as the floppies, but it's built up, and now, here we got a show devoted partially to it. Go find it. Get your comic store, $9.99, and that's before any discounts. That's the MSRP. So if your store is lucky enough to give you a little bit of a discount, like a lot of LCSs do, great. If you don't have an LCS, you can pick this up off of Amazon. You can probably pick it up at Barnes & Noble. Because it's a graphic novel, it's opened up to a lot more retail locations than floppies. Get that. And if you're not convinced, if you read that book and you're like, it was okay, I don't really want it, then fine, so be it. You tried. But I absolutely love that book, and that's why we do this show. And I would love for you guys to join in. Like, we don't do this show to like spoil comics for people. We do this to celebrate our enjoyment of it. So hopefully, you're geeking out with us. Loving this. So before we get into the latest issue, there's been a little bit of buzz going on in the indie comic world that I kind of wanted to talk to you and get your thoughts, Skip, because we don't get to talk too much. Right. Substack has been this whole Substack everywhere we're hearing it making waves. Now, we heard about this about 4 months ago because Nick Spencer decided, I'm quitting Marvel, going over to Substack, and everyone's like, what the hell's Substack? I don't care. You're Nick Spencer. Who cares? Like, move on. And the whole comic book world just kind of like glanced over and is like, okay, carry on with business. But then in the past couple of weeks, some big waves were made because James Tynion decided, I'm not going to renew my contract at DC. And my last issue of Batman is going to be issue 117. Now, despite what you may think, not the proverbial you, if you love James Tynion or not a fan of James Tynion, he kind of did save Batman. Like, Tom King had sent that title into a spiraling mess, and now DC, pretty much you can't throw a dart at a DC comic, not hit Batman. Like, I feel like half the books they release are Batman related titles. He rejuvenated people, got people excited in Batman again. And now he's like, I'm taking off. I'm going to Substack. And then if that weren't enough, Jonathan Hickman's like, I'm joining you too. I'm bringing some other comic creators, starting up a shared universe. And I'm like, what? And then there's some other creators going over there. Those are probably the two biggest names. Well, depending on what Al Ewing is going with Hickman. So for those big Al Ewing fans out there, he's going to be part of Hickman's shared universe thing. I'm sure that there's some other creators that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but what are your initial thoughts on this whole Substack thing, or just anything that you've heard? What do you think?
I see it as a positive. I'm definitely one of the people that, obviously I'm here on this show, and you and I have a show where we talk about indie comics and the love for it. But beyond just the nature of indie comics, to where artists are more free, writers are more free to tell the stories that they'd like to, without hearing no much from non-creative sources. A lot of indie comics still have editors, and I'm sure enough of them use them as a soundboard, and don't just correct the spelling or whatnot, but talk to them about the flow of the story and the structure of it and whatnot, and what might work better, and all of those good things that good editors do, and trusted editors do. But for creators to be able to do that, I tend to be happier with those stories, and I feel like I've read so many comics, and I'm kind of so sensitive to those things that I kind of pick up when editorial does do things like that, and it does really bother me, because I'm one of those people. I want the creative vision, like raw and uncut, like straight to my vein. So I appreciate the nature of indies for that. On top of the fact that a lot of our favorite creators, we know how Marvel and DC has treated them over the years, whether it's Jack Kirby, John Byrne, you go down the list, Peter David, and luckily he's, doing better and coming back around. But so many, the big two, Jonathan Hickman said something in an interview that really stuck with me. Nobody retires at the big two. And he was talking about indies. He's like, us as creators should know better. We should have things that we own, that we create, that we can reap the benefits from and profit on, and set ourselves up to where after we work all these crazy long hours over the drawing board, getting arthritis and breaking our backs, that we can at least retire, comfortably, or at the very least with dignity. So my love and appreciation for the indie market and the indie scene and what it provides to creators goes very, very deep. So anytime that there's more options for creators to have the ability to do that, and the more direct that they can get with their fan base and their readers, I'm all for it. So that's the creator side. And then from us, the consumer side, the customer side, if we care, if we find that there's a pattern, not just with characters, but with actual creators, artists, writers, colorist, whatever, and we say, I want more of what they do. And I feel like if we support them, then we will get more of that. I like things like this because it gives us options and the ability to do so. One person that comes to mind is Ed Piskor. Obviously of the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and he did X-Men Grand Design. He's got his Red Room book out there, but Patreon is something that's been around, and I like how you can go there, you could subscribe. He puts up new pages weekly. You can get the Red Room comics early before they go to print if you're part of the Patreon. So we get more options. If we want to be more direct with the creators that we really connect with, we have that opportunity. So if Substack is going to provide something like that, which it sounds like it does, then that's good. And I like that, they left the door open. Like, from what I understand, no exclusive contracts have been signed. Tynion still has books that are coming out through DC, still has books that are coming out through Image and Boom. So it's not that it's the only way that you'll be able to get your hands on his stuff, but you'll be able to get your hands on his stuff through some of the familiar means that you currently are, and now you have an additional option. And I like customers and consumers having options.
Well, I find myself agreeing with a lot of things that you say. I'm in the same sort of mindset. I do 100% agree with options. I think options are fantastic, if only to also provide competition to the other options. I think, if one option starts being really good, then the other options have to up their game and be like, whoa, hey. So while I fundamentally agree with all that philosophically, I think about it as a fan and I go, that's all good and well, but I don't think it works for me as a fan. For me, it may work for you, other people. When I went over, I was like, I got to pay $8 a month to see, because it does end up being very similar. You mentioned Patreon. It works out to be very somewhat similar. You can use Patreon in the exact same fashion if you were a creator, if you wanted to. I mean, Ed Piskor's already been doing it. Substack, the reason why Substack is kind of in the news right now, why it's the big deal and why, Hickman didn't go over to Patreon and do the same thing, is because it appears that Substack has got a bunch of investor money, a big pocket of cash that they can throw around. And what they're doing is they're providing grants to these creators, basically saying, come over to us for however long, do your thing. Here's a ton of money, right? That you don't have to pay back. You don't have to do anything. From what I understand, is part of the deal is for the first year, the creators get 100% of the profit. So, for example, Hickman's doing $8 a month, $80 a year. All of that goes to his pocket. The Substack doesn't take a dime. After that, Substack is going to take some money off the top. I heard it was like 10%, which is still relatively good when you consider things like YouTube take like 30, 35%, right. Things like that. So, that's still really good. And I think what the Substack is trying to do is just basically get people onto their system, right? And it's like, because if Hickman succeeds, if James Tynion succeeds, Substack does, right? Like that's right. Eventually they'll start making the money. The kicker is it's getting them onto their platform and staying there. It's kind of why Spotify brought Joe Rogan over. Right? Because Spotify is like, we want to make our podcast thing big, but we need a reason for people to come and use our system. So Joe, here's a ton of money. Put your podcast on, I think that's what's happening. And I'm all for it. Like I said, I'm all for options and things like that. But let's say I'm willing to give $8 a month for Hickman. That's not crazy, $8 a month. But the problem is that's one creator. Possibly, I don't really know, but I'm going to assume at this point one comic. Hickman isn't known for, he's not known for what's the term?
Like being prolific.
Prolific, yeah, that's the word exactly. He's not very, we're still waiting on issue 8 of DECORUM. How long has it been? I think close to a year almost. It's going, and it's like, Could that happen at Substack? It could. We don't know. There's no guarantees. So you're paying a monthly fee. You're not paying like a per item fee, right? You're paying just a monthly subscription, and you get what you get. Now let's say you multiply. Go, well, what if, I'm also a fan of James Tynion. Scott Snyder's doing his thing over there. Let's say, this isn't going to happen, but let's say, Jeff Johns goes over there. Robert Kirkman. Like if you all of a sudden you find like a dozen of your favorite creators are over there with their own Substacks, and they're all doing $7-8 a month. Now you're paying like $100 a month. And I was like, oh, wait a second, and that's on top of you're probably still going to be buying comics at the store, right? And I just go, I see this kind of like the crowdfunding model, right? I think people, hey, I can crowdfund this. Hey, that's cool. Crowdfund that. They, here and there. But I think most people, like, they back a crowdfunded book or whatever. They still go to the store and buy their other books.
Right.
There's only so many slices you can cut out of that pie.
Right.
And that's what I kind of worry about. I think these early guys are going to be like, oh, hey, we're doing really good. Apparently Tynion has, because I subscribed to his free version.
Okay.
All of these guys on Substack, I went on and subscribed. Everyone has like a free newsletter thing. You don't have to pay. Yeah. You pay to get the good stuff.
Right.
So Tynan's already been tweeting out like after the big thing, it's so many people have joined, all this stuff. And it's like, I'm happy for his success, but as a fan, well, I don't buy Batman anymore, but that has more to do to DC than anything Tynion was doing wrong.
Right.
I was like, I want to read your Batman book. Like, that doesn't help me. Like, I'm glad that you're succeeding, but I was happy for you writing Batman. It's like if Chip Zdarsky was like, I'm out of here, I'm going to Substack, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm canceling Daredevil.
Right.
That's what the news would mean to me. It wouldn't be like, oh, Zdarsky's going to, I have to pay $8 a month for Zdarsky stuff, and I don't know. So I'm a little bit on the fence. I don't think it's a fountain of dreams. I think for some of these creators, they want to retire and do well for themselves, and I absolutely wish them the best. That's what they should think about. But I think as for fans, I don't know. I can't help but wonder if this is going to become like a boutique type system where these creators will be funded by a very small group of fans who aren't limited to budgets. They're like, whatever, I'll just throw money at all these people, because there are people out there that have much more disposable income, and they're like, whatever, and they can live. And that's like the old way of in society. That's how artists used to survive, back in like the Renaissance and stuff. They didn't go mass produce stuff and sell it. They had really, really rich patrons that were like, I like what you do. I will pay for everything you need. Keep making art. And they're like, okay, that's how it worked. And I feel almost like we're kind of gravitating towards that way, but it's for the person like me, who's just more of the man on the street. I feel like it might make me miss out more. Now, the word is that these books will come out published later, which if that happens, then I'm really stoked. I'm on the wait and see model. One of the people that's in the creator owned sort of crowdfunded model is Timothy Lim. And I love the way he does things. He goes and he crowdfunds his things, and he gives all these cool bells and whistles for his fans, and people give him money for the expensive whatever collector's item stuff. But then the book comes out in the stores. Here's the comic book store copy, and I can go to the store and I can buy the book, and I get what I always wanted and expected. And then the collectors that are happy to throw money at special bells and whistles can get what they want. Everyone kind of wins. So if Substack turns out to be something like that, where Hickman and his buddies get together and like, ooh, we're going to be all creative and do all this cool stuff. And then like 6 months, a year down the road, we're going to have these come out published. Word is that Dark Horse was going to be publishing, like, great. I can do that. I can wait. I don't have to be, in the privileged beginning. Sometimes waiting for DVD is fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that's kind of the thing, like what you said about, like the patron model. It's not that it's still not happening today. Even with the indie route, if oh, hey, I have this idea. Most of the time, you're taking it to an editor buddy that who is then introducing, if you're a creator, introducing it to a publisher, and then you're looking to get a budget done. There are some creative teams who will do like a proof of concept. Some will even have the whole thing in the can, kind of bet on themselves, hoping to get paid off of it later. But for the most part, that's still the thing. It's not common, and definitely lower percentage of creators that like get a whole product done and then go directly to market with it. Even if they get the whole thing done, still like most of them don't want to pay. Like printing is that like a mass amount of books, even 5,000, 10,000 isn't something that most of these creators, who aren't always making money hand over fist, are trying to front for themselves. So partnering with some sort of publisher and then basically splitting the risk is something that they're normally done. So that model has it's still pretty much around. It's just kind of morphed into some other ways. And it's the same thing with like musicians, oh hey, record label or small indie label or whatever, like can you put up the money to get my record produced and properly recorded, mixed and mastered, and and then they split the profits, however they end up agreeing on and discussing rights and all of that stuff. So it's still a pretty familiar model today. The thing that made it easy for me to digest is a little bit what I guess what we both mentioned. One, it's not completely exclusive. So if I still want to get some Jonathan Hickman flavor or some Tynan flavor, then he's still going to have some like the Lake House book, our Nice House on the Lake, which I've been reading and enjoying. That came out as well. I read that and I really enjoyed issue number 3. He's still going to be doing those things. He talked about in his newsletter, like he's still going to have books in other places. So we get the option, so we don't have to completely miss out on what the creators are doing. And if there is this, and if they say, hey, here's the thing, they put up the synopsis on, for what the book is or the premise, and we look at it over on Substack and they say, that doesn't really tickle my fancy, then we don't really feel compelled, to spend, the additional money to do it. Or if we see that a creator is being really late, kind of like what was happening with Image when they first started, then they lose some of the public trust. People can, if they didn't pay for the full year, they can pull their subscriptions, or word gets out like, oh, that's not a creator that, but be careful, kind of similar to crowdfunding. Like, hey, they're always late on, every time on their campaign. So, you got to look out. So there's incentive for people to be on the top of their game and to be delivering when they say that they're going to deliver, and if they don't, there's repercussions for it. But what I like about them getting the money up front is that, like, even if it, like, let's say even for Image, create our own thing, so to speak, or Boom or whatever, it's like, okay, like no editorial, this is my idea, I can put it out, I can do it however I want. But in a way, you still want to have you still want to reel in enough till you feel like, you're gonna comfortably get some sort of return back on it. With the money up front and them not taking money from the first part of the year, it's a grant. They can really swing for the fences with some of the most ambitious ideas that they, have. So I like that idea that we really might get some of the most like creative work for some people that we really like ever. And then as far as like the budgeting on who you want, like there's probably not a bunch of creators that I'm going to end up, like supporting or backing, so to speak. I might have to, split it up, but that's fine. Cause it's to me, it's kind of like collecting books. I'm a book collector. So I went and I found a copy of East of West issue number 1 today, and it was $10. And I'm like, okay, I look at my comic budget. I'm like, okay, I can sustain that, but I was going to take a chance on, this odd indie book that looked like it might've been cool over here. And you know what? It's not as high of a priority for me. It's not, I want this more than I want that. So that falls off of the list. So we could still do it within, within our budgets and stuff, but I don't look at it any different as collecting, collecting a book that I want. Like that book is $2 more than what it'll cost for me to back Jonathan Hickman for a month. And I wanted it. It means a lot to me. and it was within my budget. So I just may have to be a little flexible, but I'm definitely going to be choosy on who I support, who I don't. Like James Tynion, I may not become a patron of his. He's not my favorite writer. I haven't read a lot of things from him that I've liked. I haven't read anything from him that I've loved. So I'm like, as of right now, the only person that I'm really going to be backing is Jonathan Hickman. And if more people come along and they make some compelling stuff that I want to back, I will. But for the most part, majority of my comic purchasing is still going to be the normal model. And what else is nice is kind of like with most things, the more people that maybe do support an artist, they may be able to afford, and don't quote me on this, but usually if it's, you know, they want to bring more people in, they may be able to afford to drop some of their tiers or add an additional tier at a lower rate where they're like, hey, you can come in at this level, and you know that can still be beneficial to both of us. It's more affordable for us, and you know it allows more of y'all to come and support me and get this creative work at this price. So it's early. I have reason to be excited. I have heard people be pretty, let's say, overt or you know with some of their projections on what it may be. And time's going to tell on that. At the end of the day, we always talk about execution here on this channel. And it's really going to come down to how these first batch of people, you know, with Nick Spencer being the first to go over, and they kind of tapped him to be like a talent scout for them. And then he, you know, tells his Jonathan Hickman, who he's written some books with over at Marvel, and Al Ewing, and you know, and Tynan, you know, and helps bring them over. So time will tell ultimately how they execute. And this could totally fail. That like we don't want to be naive and say that it can't, but like you said, I want the big two to be challenged, and this is something that that could do it. But more than that, I love great art, and I want to see some ambitious, crazy, swing for the fence type stuff from the people that I like, and I'm more than happy to, you know, support them if it's within my budget.
For sure. It definitely. I guess my worry is I have my two. The things for me personally as a consumer, I have two. My two primary concerns. Number one is digital. I'm happy to read digital. In fact, I pretty much only read digital, but I don't really like buying digital. The digital that I do buy, it's because I get crazy discounts at. You know, it was how I got into buying digital music years ago. How I switched off of CDs because I was like, well, geez, I can buy the CD for I can buy the CD for like $15, but it's Amazon selling a digital for $5. Right. And I was like, I'll just get the digital. And eventually I got comfortable with that. I was like, yeah, I just don't see the reason. You know, if I have to have it on a physical disc, I can rip it, burn it onto a disc. I got comfortable with that. The discount. Same thing with movies. I pretty much only buy movies digitally now. I usually pay much less than it would cost me to buy the Blu-ray. But comics don't really work that way, except for trades and like older stuff. Like, oh look, this trade's $20, but on Comixology it's on sale for $5. I am much more happy to do the $5. Certain books that I love, I get that physical, right? I get that nice hardcover edition of Criminal or East of West, and it's on my book. I love that. I have that, but not every single thing needs to be that way. But I do like owning the physicality, especially if I'm going to be paying the price of physicality. And my thought is, if I'm paying you $8 a month, but all I'm getting is some digital comics, it's kind of like I'm paying for web comics. Now, obviously, they're going to be much better web comics than your typical schmo, right? I'm getting
right.
Jonathan Hickman, but I'm not guaranteed even what I'm going to get month after month. The thing about DECORUM being late, I haven't been paying $8 every month for DECORUM. When it goes on hiatus, my money goes on hiatus. But with the subscription model, it's like you keep getting billed, and I'm like, wait a second, what's going on? And I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but it is a concern that I have. I'm not paying a per item thing. And so, it's like, well, Ash, you just cancel your subscription if they don't deliver. And it's like, but I want them to deliver. I'm not, that's the thing is then I have to miss out. I don't want to just, I'm going to buy DECORUM when it comes out because I love the series. I'm a little bit annoyed that it's late, but whatever. Things come out. I've got plenty of other comics to read. I don't want to miss out on it. I don't want to, that's like a worst case scenario. I'll be like, oh, well, I'm paying and they're constantly late and missing stuff. So I'm just going to pull my subscription. Okay. Now you don't get anything. Well, it's like, well, geez, now I do like the stuff. I didn't stop being a fan. So I have these things where my brain is going into the future about all these possible roadblocks and things that could happen. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, this is obviously in its infancy stage. I was very curious. I haven't got to talk to a lot of people to hear their thoughts about what it means to them, like as a consumer. I'll wrap up at least my side real quick here with a comment that Nalo in the audience says. He says the best comment that he's heard by a user he saw in Hickman's newest Substack post, and quote, "This is some great stuff. I think it's pretty awesome how I can come here and read awesome stuff and just scroll down to the comments and be part of the community." That seems
Heck
like
yes,
a pretty
that's
cool,
what I'm looking forward to. Oh yeah.
That seems like a pretty cool advantage. My first thought is thinking, well, you kind of already have that, right, with social media, but social media is kind of a cesspool. So I don't think, hopefully, like if you go to Hickman's Substack, it's probably not going to be full of a bunch of haters, right? It's going to be full of just his fans. So whereas on Twitter, you get both. You're going to get the people like, I love everything you do, Hickman. And then you're going to get the people like, damn it, Hickman, you ruined my ex. Like you're going to get all of that. So what do you think? What are your final thoughts?
That's a big one for me is the community. Cause I do, the books that I do love them so much. And the added bonus, the icing, on the cake really is to be able to share that joy, theories, favorite scenes and panels and all of those different things with others who feel the same way and can, add. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why we do this show is, for that element to share the love and also, get others' perspectives, some things that we either maybe missed or just didn't think about that way. So, it's kind of like joining the club. And I remember back in the day, like, hey, send this in and, do this thing and you can be a subscription. You can be part of this club or this fan club. And, you get your, signed Power Rangers pictures that I got back in the day, Amy Jo Johnson, Pink Ranger, all that stuff. So that's a bit of how I feel about it right now. And, kind of the same thing. And I share, some of the concerns that you do. And I talked about how, that can tarnish their names and it turns, it could turn, people off to it and, would lead to ultimate failure. If artists aren't, you have to, at the very base, keep your word and deliver what you say you're going to deliver. And then if you want to build on that and really, make the thing successful, then, you incorporate value adds, on top of that and other different incentives and things like that. But, missing out, none of us, I don't think anybody enjoys missing out, especially on things that we're really interested in. It is an unfortunate reality of life as a whole and entertainment, and we've seen many a comics be delayed or pushed back or canceled, before they even come out, and it is a reality. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be in the low part, in the minority of it. But like I said, ultimately we don't know. But if I want this thing to succeed, I would like to get more stuff from the creators that I like, and I would like for them to have more direct interaction with us. And I would like for there to be more communities that aren't so difficult to find, where I'm in like this odd Discord with like some people that like Ice Cream Man and we're like kind of role playing and like we kind of maybe someone comments like every 3 days or like once a week. And then like we go in there and talk but to have like a whole thing where it's like everybody knows this is here. It's on Substack. We can all enjoy it and talk about it. That's the only thing that I want more of from comics than good comics is good and more community. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm at least, for good or ill, I'm at least excited to see where this goes. It's kind of uncharted territory. It could do some negative things for my priorities, as far as how I see things. or it could be really beneficial. I could turn out to love this new thing. I don't know, but I am very curious to see. I do like some of the community ideas. I do worry. RDV in the chat talks about me and some comments about echo chambers and things like that, and I would worry more about like elitism, about being like, oh, I'm part of this exclusive community because I pay for my membership, and I'm like, I think that could have some unintended consequences about being like, you're only a fan if you pay to be, but hey, that's why we have things like the Unnamed Indie Comic Show. That's why we're here. Right. We don't charge you a dime. And we don't even subject you to bad commercials, but we do subject you to comic geekery. Let's get into firepower. We've talked enough about the Substack. Hopefully we didn't put too many people to sleep. I think most people are here for this book. It's one of my favorites. I think it's one of yours. Hopefully everyone's reading it. And on with the show, as they would say.
On with the show, indeed.
Trying to get my screens all in order so I can. I would not be a good producer on a show. The people that make the behind the scenes work, God bless you guys, because you have skills. Previously, with Chow Fang imprisoned, Owen and his family have returned home, but everything is not back to normal. Haley is seeing snakes, Doug is getting into trouble at school, and Kelly is taking down gun-wielding criminals robbing the local donut shop. Their past doesn't seem to want to let go, and when Haley discovers that she also has the firepower, things are about to get even more complicated for the Johnson family.
Yes, it is. We start out with a nice establishing shot. Owen and his wife are doing some dishes, talking about how it was their son Doug's night, but because of what he had dealt with at school, getting into a fight, and that leading to a little bit of trouble, and also him not having been able to harness the firepower. Owen, his dad, gave him the night off, and they're just both talking about, how even though it wasn't good that he got into a fight at school, it is still impressive that he was able to take on not one, not two, but 3 8th graders at the time. Owen, after he's done with the dishes, walks outside because we see his daughter out there in the back, Haley, and she is out there, with no instruction, just trying to harness the firepower again and throw some fireballs. And she's getting frustrated and even kind of does a bit of a curse. And her dad just goes and reassures her and, lets her know, yeah, it wasn't easy for me at first. All of the emotion and focus that it takes, is difficult. But the more time I spent with it and I focused it, ultimately I was able to harness it. And he even produces a little bit of it right there on the spot, and just letting her know, like, hey, you can't force it. Forcing it is bad. You got to let it come to you, and just practice what you can, and the best that you can. But as they're walking back inside, out of the nighttime air, Owen senses something. There's a shadowy figure back there, and as he looks over his shoulder, that shadowy figure is gone. So, Ash, how did you enjoy? If you did enjoy the first scene of the book.
Loved it. We had the last episode, or last issue, I should say, of this book, was a very kind of a grounded interlude type issue where it just took a breather from the main plot lines and kind of reset the characters and gave you some character development moments. And, it wasn't strong on plot. It was just like, hey, let's just have a breather, and it was really, I think, good for the series. Really helped me just feel more attachment to these characters, which is really important. That's one of Robert Kirkman's super strengths to me, is that he just makes me care about these characters. So he can get away with I don't want to say mediocre stories, but he doesn't have to have into the world event. You can talk like the mainstream comics, right? Marvel and DC, they're stuck in this pattern of just constantly the universe is at risk like every 3 months, because what else do you have to care about? but with Kirkman, you can have really more mundane things, but they seem super important because everyone in the book is so important to you. And he remembers to do that. And so now I really care about, why she can't do the firepower. I really care. Like, there's someone in the woods. Who can that be? It matters. So it feels like it's pulling off of the last issue really strong. Like, it didn't just forget what happened, but it's also clearly moving into, okay, we didn't forget that this is a book about kung fu action and crazy stuff. There's a ninja in the woods. Let's, don't worry, readers. We know what the book's about. And that's what it feels like this whole segment was for me.
Definitely. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's the simple parts of the book that keep it feeling so grounded. He and his wife, taking over the dishes on the night that, one of the kids was supposed to do them, for specific reasons, and all those different things that are very sensible, and even the conversations that they find themselves having, as we talk about certain worlds feeling lived in, this would be like a relationship that feels, let's say, experienced, whether we have observed it, from, secondhand, or have been in a similar relationship ourselves. So, man, he just does a really good job of just making things feel so accessible and familiar through his characters. And then I of course, I like, the fact we talk about in stories how sometimes when people get things a little too quick and too easy, it doesn't feel earned and whatnot. So for Haley to have, accidentally tapped into something that's within her, and then not be able to just immediately start rise, her skill with it and her uses of it just starts immediately elevating. She's struggling. And same thing, any of us who've ever tackled any kind of discipline, martial arts or drawing or, basketball or whatever, we know that it takes time and focus and repetition to elevate those skills. So all of those things, just praise for Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney. They're killing it.
Yeah.
So we move over to the next scene. My personal favorite scene.
I knew it. when I turned this page, I was like, oh, Skip's. I can't wait to hear what Skip thinks about this.
Hey, I'm a simple man. Like, once you get to know me, like, I'm easy to figure out. I'm easy to guess. One of my best friends, he's like my brother. He sent me a song the other day, and I finally listened to it, and I was like, oh yeah, I love this. I've been hearing this song on like some random YouTube video that I've been watching lately, and like you sent the song to me, and now I know what it is. And he was like, yeah, man, I know you. And I'm like, see, people think I'm like all kooky and stuff, but once you really just pay attention to get to know me, I'm so predictable. Anywho, so we got Master Lun out here over at the Temple of the Flaming Fist, and he is like, his students are playing basketball. He has a ball. He kind of takes them to school, so to speak, in so many cool different ways. He does a move that I'm gonna let y'all know when you bounce the ball between your defender's legs and catch it behind him. It's called the nutmeg. You will see Trae Young use this move a lot in the NBA, and then dunks it, and then like, he basically played keep away with like hecka students, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then finally, he senses something, so he throws in the ball, and he's off to check out what it is that he's sensing. And he gets down there, and it's Chow Fang, and Chow Fang has the serpent on his shoulder, and he is continually throwing a blow at his cage. He is taken over by the serpent's omen, and saying that he serves a higher power, and you can't keep him locked in a cage. And then Ma Guang comes and meets him over there, sees the same thing going on, and just letting him know, like, oh, higher, kind of ridicules him, like, oh, a higher power, yet you're stuck in a cage. I'm not really too impressed. So that scene and getting caught up with what's going on with Chow Fang, Ma Guang, and Wei Lun, what did you take from that, Ash?
Well, let's see. From going back to the basketball thing, this was just one of those funny scenes. I felt like this. I wasn't expecting a scene like this to happen, but I felt like once it was put here, I was like, oh yeah, of course. This feels like it needed to happen. Partly the fact that, the master he's known for his Jordans, his love of Jordans. And then, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a basketball aficionado by any means, but isn't that the famous Air Jordan dunk?
Yeah.
That's
that is it. While he has Air Jordan on his feet,
so,
which has been something that got introduced way back in the prelude that we keep praising and telling everybody to check out.
So seeing that, like the pose like that, just I was like, oh, even a a non b-boy white boy like me can b-ball white boy like me can appreciate. And then of course going back again, this is Kirkman saying, we didn't forget about the main overall plot, and we know we the snakes are coming, and the big doom God, I forget these characters. I really keep saying this to myself. I gotta write the character's name. What's this? Is Chow Fang, right?
Chow Fang.
Yeah, Chow Fang. He's obviously possessed. We don't know necessarily the manner of how the snakes work. Is it a possession thing, mind control?
Right.
I don't know, but he's definitely under control, and he's trying to break free like a caged animal. And it's he's not going anywhere at the moment, but we can see the ominous foreshadowing. This is going to be a problem, and probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Dun dun dun. But yeah, of course, I love this. I talked about how I love the scene. I'm a huge basketball fan. I play basketball. NBA Summer League may or may not be on a television screen right above where I'm looking at the chat and our live stream. It may or may not be on mute. I may or may not have met an Apple coworker today at the store that will be going to Kings games with me because they love the Sacramento Kings too. Really big basketball fan over here. But yeah, of course, like the iconography of that's called the Jumpman pose. That is the pose from when Michael Jordan ran from the and dunked from the free throw line in the dunk contest. And of course, that is they call that the Jumpman. That's the icon that is on a lot of the Jordan shoes and clothing and whatnot, and had songs made about it and such. So, but I've kind of always been a sucker, even back in, for the Three Ninjas days where it was the bullies at the school and, they played basketball against them and used their martial arts skills to be better athletes. It harkens back to some of that stuff. So I always have a cheesy appreciation.
Oh, yeah, like Shaolin soccer.
Yeah, dude, Shaolin soccer. Exactly.
Yeah. Kung Fu and sports. Kung Fu makes sports better.
It's the ranch of sports. It just makes it better.
The ranch of sports.
So of course I really appreciated that. And then, going on to more serious matters, we had seen a serpent creep into the cell of Chow Fang. This is the natural progression of how things have been, going on. We don't know, like Ash said, to what degree his possession is, but it is such that he is banging, iron or some sort of metal bars, and his knuckles are bleeding. So that's at least we know it is that severe. So as that's happening, and then Wei Lun and Ma Guang come and assess him, and begin to talk to him to kind of same thing, just see where his bearings are at. They find that that is pretty deep, but they, at the same time, Master Wei Lun, throwing out some humor, doesn't seem to be too impressed as he's poking and prodding whatever it is behind Chow Fang that's got a hold of him, so to speak.
Yeah, this seems like the classic underestimate your enemy thing, right? This trope. That's how I'm interpreting that. Is oh, you got your enemy where he's down, I'm unimpressed, I'm gonna talk smack to you. Nothing good comes when you do that. That's just gonna make him reveal to be the big threat and be like, oh, we probably should have took this more seriously instead of joking about it. We'll
totally see. That did not register for me. Thank you so much for adding that in, because we know that some sort of calamity is going to come from that. As they say, respect respect your. Even when I'm playing 2K, if we get in the game and there's a bunch of people that are low ranked and they step up to the court, I've been burned by those players before. So I've learned my lesson. Always respect your opponent. Always respect your enemy. When you don't, you're going to end up on your butt.
Yep. Yep. And in writing, it's just a classic trope, right? You have the characters feel confident, like, oh yeah, we got this, so that they can learn their lesson and get knocked on their butt, and so that classic trope can be told, like, you probably shouldn't do that because so we'll see if Kirkman utilizes it. That it seems like I said, massive foreshadowing to me, but
very true. All right, so from there we go back over to the Owen residence. Got a nice establishing shot of their house again, and Owen's just on his phone. There's a little bit of conversation going on about a game of Sorry that they were playing, and a good old fashioned board game. But this is a matter of a heart. This scene. Kelly asks Owen, like, "Are you happy?" And like a good husband, like a good husband, he's like, with a little humor. Whoa, okay, putting my phone away. And then she just talks about how his previous life, was so big, all these clans and fighting and trying to get him as the source of the firepower over on their team. And she feels that maybe what their small family provides may not be enough excitement, or just may not measure up to that. And Owen just lets her know, about, hey, I started this journey because I was in search of family, didn't get the answers that I was looking for, but maybe I got the answers that I needed. And what I know is that this is my family now, and this is more than enough for me. And he's a smart man, because if you take care of that security gland that your wife has, and you make sure that thing is in good health, you happy wife, happy life. So yeah, he gives the right answer, and the lights go out, and she sure does make him happier, as he said. Let's leave it at that one right there. That there's a little meat on that bone. Ash, how did you feel about it?
It was a cool little moment that I don't feel like we've seen in the book, really, at this level this far. And I think this is not just important for Kelly. I think this is important for the reader, because we've been talking about before about, like, oh crap, here comes the love triangle type of thing. And I myself have been vocal multiple times about my concern on this, and I myself am having security issues. Like, is this going to go south? Where's this, and so I think sometimes you write scenes like this for the reader's benefit as well. You're speaking through your characters, and characters have, roles to play in the story. And I think that for me, that's how I take this away, is that, the security of Owen with his family, how tight is it? And we can see, like, it's tight. And I just thought it was kind of a nice little, little bound chicka wow. I was just like, oh, good answer. Now let's see if I can make you even happier, and you're like, and I'm glad that, it's Kirkman does it this way. I feel like if this were a Marvel book, we'd get 3 more panels, to try to really walk the more fine line of a sex scene that's just really not necessary. And then the last panel, which is really the most important thing, is, again, going back, Kirkman reminding you, don't worry, fans. I understand this isn't just a soap opera. We got kung fu actions coming, and there's the shadowy figure we see out the window. So yeah, good scene.
Samney does it so well. Yeah, most of what I said, was added while I was explaining it. But yeah, just good scene, tasteful scene, done well. And while it's a scene that's an investment in the characters, it's not devoid of also advancing the story with what Samney does in the background with the shadowy figure. But our next scene is Owen out there playing golf with the parents, with the dad. He's not doing all that great, but of course, the ranch of sports, kung fu, he hits a ball and like knocks it off of a bunch of trees and then into like a small hole in the side of a tree, kind of letting us know, like, he could be playing better and maybe getting a hole in one on almost every course, but he's not taking advantage of his martial arts power to do so. Right from there, we go over and we see that Doug is also out in the yard trying to harness the firepower. He's practicing. Kelly got her coffee or tea and a good book, hopefully tea, because it's looks like it's dark out there. No caffeine before bed, Kelly. You should know better. But she hears a she hears a thump, runs up stairs because Haley is the only person in the house at that time, and there are a bunch of serpents crawling up to her bed, and this time everybody sees them. Kelly grabs the one that's about to bite Haley, tells Haley to jump on her back and hold tight. They go out the window for an escape. Doug looks up because he was out in the yard, sees that it's his mom and his sister going through the window and some snakes coming behind him. And Doug, still with his personality, decides that he needs to take action, and he just starts stomping. Oh, snake stomp! And he just starts stomping on all of the snakes. But the snakes start forming a person, kind of knocks Doug off to the side. And as they're forming the person, just says, hey, I am the serpent's omen. You will the firepower. Basically like, your flame will be extinguished. Jumping towards Haley because she has the firepower. Kelly says, no way. Nice Muay Thai knee to the gut. Spinning roundhouse kick to the face. The lady who is the serpent's omen is pushed back. Get a little fight scene. And Kelly was able to ward her off well enough. But Haley tries to throw the firepower and isn't able to do so. It's just not coming out. But right as Kelly is about to get struck, Ling Zan, bam, Liu Kang ninja kick, shadow kick. It was no Johnny Cage did the shadow kick. Liu Kang kick out of nowhere to the Serpent's Omen person. And of course, Haley and Kelly are like, isn't that the lady that helped Dad? What's she doing here? And Kelly's like, yeah, I think that's her. But I don't know. Isn't that the lady that was fighting Dad on the plane? Kelly's like, I think so. And then Haley is questioning who that other woman is. And Kelly does not look happy. She's like, I don't know. So the fight continues. Ling Zan is able to ward off the Serpent's Omen, and they disappear into a bunch of snakes and go off again. And Kelly is like, who the heck are you? Now, I'm going to pause it right there because that was a lot of scene. Ash, how are you feeling about that whole love triangle thing?
Yeah, there's a lot of scene to talk about here. The love triangle thing, well, we'll get to that. First, going back to the golf scene, I'm glad that you explained it the way that you did, because this scene left me scratching my head, and I mostly just kind of dismissed it as like, okay, it's just like a funny moment of some bonding time between father and son playing golf, and it's just a cute little moment. I couldn't really understand, like, oh, what's he doing? Like, why is he hitting? And he hits the ball and it gets stuck in this little hole knot in the tree or something. And I was like, didn't understand how to interpret this. I was like, is he really that bad? Or maybe he was like making his own game. Like, he's like, instead of, because they talk about he doesn't really like golf. And I was like, is he just making his own, game? And that's like, and then you said, like, he kind of is holding back. And I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Showing like what he could do if he was really trying, but also for the sake of his father, like not. So he's kind of satisfying his own sense of challenge. Like, I gotta challenge myself, try, but at the same time, not let his father think like, oh, like if he just sunk to the hole in one every time, his dad wouldn't want to play with him, and it would just. So yeah, I feel like I interpret this scene all better now that you said that. So
right on.
I like that. It makes the scene better. Going back to the night scene, I gotta just say, every time Peanut Butter is, I'm a dog lover, but Sammy just I think he just kind of gets it. Like how Peanut Butter's lying on the couch, like the way he draws these scenes, like it's so innocuous, but it's intentional, because 3 panels later, Peanut Butter's all alerted and she's in the right spot to be. And it's just those little details I really appreciate. Seeing the snakes be a big threat was a big deal. Made me realize, okay, this book is cool. We're getting into the action. Kirkman's not going to be delaying this issue after issue. And I like the tumble out the window. I like the sun. Like you said, it's a perfect tone to his personality. I gotta say, like, that's one thing Kirkman really nails is you can feel like these characters are characters, like how they talk and do things. There are certain writers that we won't talk about that have been accused of, just like, oh, you could just swap the word bubbles around and it just matches anybody. And I really think that's true in a lot of modern writers. But Kirkman, absolutely, these characters feel like they have their own voice. And I think that makes you like them all the more. The whole snake bonding creature thing is pretty intimidating. And we get a little fight scene. I do love the anime slide. I don't know what else to call it. That's such a trope in anime, like the slide backwards and like have to grab into the ground to break yourself, just you could just do that all the time. I know it's cliche, but just keep doing it. It's cool. Like, that's why it's like this. It's like the superhero pose. It's like,
exactly,
you just do it. And we get some cool some actions. Once again, what's the daughter's name again?
Haley.
Haley, that's right. I keep thinking Kelly. That's the wife. So Haley, she wants to do the fire, but she can't. And then Ling Zan comes out of nowhere. And she's fighting, and presumably, so we now know that she's on the case, so she's aware of what's going on. She's showing that blades are apparently effective, and but she's still, not quite sure of everything, as we can see in the last panel here, where she's like, what the heck? Disappears into a puff of smoke. And then this last scene kind of made me groan a little bit. I was like, she's like, Ling Zan, when were you gonna, tell me that your dead girlfriend was actually alive? And I just love the way Samney draws it here. It feels very manga inspired, yet the art is clearly still Western style art. But just the expression and sort of the immediate switch from 0 to 60 outrage. And just some of the way styles that you see in the way manga tells stories, up to the very last panel with Owen just that seemed like a very manga moment, and I'm cool with it. Like, this is an Asian inspired comic, and I do like seeing hybrid things, take what works from other things and blend them in. I'm just observing here. I'm not criticizing, but I did have to be like, oh no. Oh, where is this going to go? Like, I don't like the triangle, but again, sometimes you just got to trust the writer. It's like, okay, you know what you're doing. I'm not going to prejudge. Just going to cross my fingers and hope for the best.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, though I do not have as much of an issue with that. Still, some of the things that go along with potential love triangles that Ash just talked about are still there. So, Owen got that whole, like, Owen, you got some splaining to do. He definitely got that. But we go back over to the Temple of the Scorched Earth, the island that they are on, and we get an establishing shot of that. We have a student running up the temple stairs, running up to the room of Master Chen Zul, who is the, leader of the Scorched Earth clan, as well as the father of Ling Zan. And he lets her know, your daughter is missing. She hasn't been seen since. And then that's when we turn the page and we see Master Zul, and he has a serpent or two around his arm, shoulder, and up his neck. And he's got that same look in his eye that Chao Feng did when he was inside of the cell. And I like the little artistic thing from Samney, how that look in Chen Zul's eye matches the same look in the snake's eye that's right over his shoulder. And that is where the issue ends.
Yeah, this is the foreboding stay tuned next week, folks. Like that's the whole that Kirkman does really well. This is a classic comic book trope that you always want to end your book on that cliffhanger to keep the audience coming back for more. And that's really what these last 2 pages serve to do. It makes me go, oh, there's much more to come. And this is how you do serialized storytelling. I think Kirkman did put on a clinic, I should say, with this book of how to do it. If you're already a fan of Firepower, I think this book is just going to make you happy. If you aren't a fan of Firepower, what's wrong with you? No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully, listening to our show and us talking about it, adds some perspective that maybe makes you see it in a more positive light. I know one of my favorite things to do, talk to Skip, is because he sometimes will talk about his perspective on a scene, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I see it that, like I didn't catch it that way. And that makes me appreciate it all the more. So, hopefully we're able to do a little bit of that for you and enjoy the book. And if you already are enjoying the book, maybe you're just nodding your head and going, yeah, I'm glad other guys get it too. Like I'm not the only one, So thank you guys, for being here and joining us, talking about this book. What is your speculation about where this is going?
Well, the Serpent's Omen is kind of the driving force now that, things have kind of been at least settled for the moment between the Scorched Earth clan and the Temple of the Flaming Fist. And I think what's interesting about it is, the whole possibility of a dragon and whatnot. We know that there is something that has larger green scales and was down in that, watery area where they ended up apprehending Chao Fang. So I think that this is actually going to tie back to the dragon, and maybe neither of the clans knew that there was this society that in a way kind of also almost maybe even worship those types of creatures, with like a dragon being a little similar to a snake, obviously with the way that they look and the green scales and everything, almost like a snake without wings and a larger mouth. So I think what they're both going to find out is that, like, hey, there's this other society, and they, as a dragon is magical, this society is also magical, and then that's where we'll deal with a more magical element going on to all of their surprise. But what about you?
I would like to maybe point out something that Asian mythology, most predominantly Chinese and Japanese, both share the idea of dragons as serpents. Right. So a Japanese and the Chinese mythology, I don't. There's many other Asian cultures too. I'm not ignoring them. I just don't know much about them. Visualize dragons as a serpentine creature, right? They don't. There's no wings. That's a very Western concept of the winged dragon.
Okay.
And so I would expect that if there is a real dragon, which we have had hints of, that it's going to be an Asian style serpentine dragon. Now that going along with that line of thinking makes me wonder if the serpent's omen is tied to the dragon. What if the dragon, or what we consider the dragon, is actually some aspect is running the serpent's omen? Like the reason maybe why the Scorched Earth clan wants to destroy the dragon is because of that. It's an ancient enemy. Right?
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm heading to with that, because clearly the Scorched Earth wants to destroy the dragon. We don't necessarily know why. We do know that there's this serpent's omen, which we think of as like a new player and things, but that's only because of the way Kirkman introduced it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been around. We just haven't seen them. And they clearly know about the firepower. And I talked about last time my thoughts of the firepower being sort of blood tied, and that I think that maybe Owen is actually a direct blood descendant of that original master who had the firepower, and why he can use it. And my theory of this Arthurian mythos style thing of like, when they talk about the return of that master, they don't mean his literal return, but return in spirit through his lineage, much like King Arthur. The prophets, the idea like King Arthur will one day return to save England, type thing. And that's kind of where I'm going with that. And if that's true, maybe the fact that Owen has appeared and he's summoned the firepower, that's kind of maybe what has awoken the dragon and the serpents. Like if they are truly on the same side or one and the same.
Absolutely. No, I could see that. I think that's a very great point. Yeah, more of like a spiritual return as opposed to, almost like a, gosh, I'm forgetting. There's a term for it, but it's like another iteration of a person. Like, let's say like, oh, you're, Ash, the way you play basketball, you're like the second coming of Michael Jordan. Like, so in that regard, I can definitely see that, and it's pushing me more down the road of starting to feel like Owen is related to Master Shaw. Like that may be the missing tie, is that Owen is like related to Master Shaw, and maybe that that's part of his lineage, and somewhere down the line someone had done something to separate Owen from his family that was more connected to Master Shaw, who is that's the stone, the statued individual that's at the Temple of the Scorched Earth. So I like where you're going with that. Very good point.
Now, RDV in chat mentions that he thinks it's not a dragon, that what we saw several issues ago, where we got that little hint in that cave where we saw the scales. And he says, well, what if that's like actually a snake? And that's a really good point. Something that I hadn't actually thought of, because like a good magician, Kirkman is drawing your eyes to see things, and he's drawing you to conclude what you see is what he wants you to think you see. So what if what we saw is not actually what we think we saw, right? We're
Right.
recluded to go, oh, that's the dragon. That's gotta be like, that doesn't have to be a dragon. That could totally be something else.
Sure.
Right. And that's a great way to write things, because that the audience is going to be directed a certain way. And so what if that is? What if it could be, it would be similar to what my theory is, that the dragon is part of the serpent thing, but it could also be completely what RDV is saying. It's like not the dragon at all. That's just something else entirely.
Right.
Although it was in the dragon's, it was down the well. It was in that dragon's like cave thing. Like, so that'd be a weird
True.
place for that to be, but so many things could happen.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's where I'm going with it. When you read these books, do you read the letters pages and the coda thing at the end?
Not for firepower.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I love it. He's got a good letters page. And this RC Coda thing that's at the end of the book is interesting, where he just has Kirkman and Sammy have a conversation about the book, and it's pretty interesting. It's kind of done with a little snarky attitude, and they kind of joke around, and it's fun to read. If you are a fan, I recommend trying it out. But the letters page offers some insight, and I'm trying to remember where I saw. Okay, so it's here in the middle. Where he addresses this person, Cody Martin, that wrote in. And they talk about, it's great to have you on board, Cody. I feel like we all cast the characters with different voices. Because he said, when I read Walking Dead, I can't help but hear the actor's voice anyway, blah, blah, blah. And he says, as for cutting room floor entries for Firepower, right now we're doing RC Coda because he wants to know more behind the scenes stuff. And he's like, I promise if we ever get this a hit TV series and we're reprinting this book for the third time, we'll share more. But he says, maybe I'll show my notes and things on the writing side. They're far more involved than my plots for The Walking Dead were. And that really stuck out to me when I was reading that. I was like, like, not like, oh, I'm just this even more than like far more complicated and involved than the plots he wrote for The Walking Dead. So that makes me think it of course it reinforces my theories of like, oh, okay, all this stuff is a big deal. Like, I'm not just making things up. Like, Kirkman really does have all these strings and, you know, plates spinning and things that he wants to get to. This isn't just random nonsense. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I've already witnessed him do these things. I'm not just, you know, making up what I've seen other writers do. He's shown that he's very adept at weaving these complicated webs and moving subplots within subplots and things around. So anyways, the letters page sometimes can give you little hints of good things to come. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy like all of those little tidbits, and to hear something like that just makes me even more excited about the book. Especially earlier on, you know, we weren't sure how long it was going to be. Was it going to be an ongoing? Was it going to wrap up at 12? So to hear that he has plans and he says that they're more involved than The Walking Dead, that excites me. Of course, I try not to take the bait because you know, it's kind of like, what, more than The Walking Dead? And you know, we think about, you know, how long The Walking Dead ended up going and all of that stuff. But at the same time, to know that he's putting in even more effort than he did, you know, with the plots of The Walking Dead, that's encouraging. So at the what it ultimately tells me is that he's invested in this book. This is not something that he just started and he doesn't care about. This is a man that's running, you know, at this point he's, you know, garnered multi-millions, you know, with his properties and with TV rights and different things like that. His time is precious, and he is spending his time on this book with Chris Samnee and Russ Wooten and Matthew Wilson, because he's invested in it. So I'm excited to know that he's got a fire lit up, you know, within him and under him, and we're gonna get more out of this book, because every week, you know, for a while now, I've learned to not feel this way, but you know, every month I should say, when I would go to get this book, I'd be like, oh, I'm hoping this is not the issue that like lets me down and where the book begins to, you know, just kind of like tank and feel like it's uninspired. But I've learned my lesson. I stopped feeling that way. This book delivers, and that's why we continue to talk about it here every show.
Absolutely. This show is such a pleasure to do. I want to thank you again, Skip, for continuing to do with me, and you guys in the audience. We are going to be wrapping this up. We were going to be doing Geiger. I threw that on on the agenda for tonight, but I kind of, like I always do when I go to the buffet, I put too much food on my plate. For time constraints and to give Geiger the love that it deserves, we're going to push it to the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks. I looked forward. There's not a lot of issues that we do on the show that are coming out between that time. So we're going to be doing that, as well as wrapping up the Skybound X books. So if you haven't read those, check them out. If you're a big fan of Skybound, like we are, there's some good stuff in there. And Geiger is fantastic. Like I said earlier in the show, this newest issue was my favorite of the series so far, and I feel like Jeff Johns is really, he's got ideas. I think it made me excited because there were hints that this was bigger than what we've seen so far, which makes me very interested. And I'm just starting to but I'm caring even more about the book than I was. But we just, like I said, I don't want to get around to making the show too long. Was there any final things to talk about on this book, or just wrapping up? Any books coming out in the next couple weeks that you want to draw attention to? People maybe going to the store and picking up?
Yeah, there are a few, and I actually have my list right here. So I'm looking forward to Compass number 3. This is a book by Justin Greenwood, who is a talented artist, very fun artist, and a buddy of mine. It's a writing duo, so it's Robert McKenzie and Dave Walker. I continue to be impressed by the story, and like I say, it is a tale's tale. It is a stories type of story. So if you are really into stories and adventure, and like to take a ride, like I said, it's a little bit of like Indiana Jones meets Laura Croft, Tomb Raider. So it's really fun, well drawn, a lot of energy within the panels and whatnot. Very cool. So that one's coming along, and then also around the time where we do the next show, so many books. So I put this Department of Truth number 12 down because I'm going to grab it. I've decided now that there's enough of them out of there, and after talking to Nalo more, I'm going to go back through and I'm just going to read through Department of Truth. I'm going to go ahead and commit myself to it. So that one's up there.
For not being the James Tynion fan, you buy more James Tynion books than I do.
Well, that'll be like my second James Tynion book. The only other one that I've been reading is The Nice House on the Lake. And I was close. I was really close to waiting for the trade after reading issue number 2. But Nala was like, I forgot that number 3 came out last week. And he was like, somehow I missed it on my list. And he was like, oh, no, 3 came out. Like, that one hooked me, man. Like, that's how I know I'm going to stick with it. And I went and read 3. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely staying with this book. So that Texas Blood number 9 comes out as well. Jacob Phillips and Chris Condon. Jacob Phillips, of course, the son of Sean Phillips from the Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker series of books, Criminal, Pulp, all that good stuff. Vinyl number 3 comes out. It's a really weird and wild series from Image. That's interesting. And then the main 2 that I'm looking forward to on that week of the 25th. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr number 5. I had already been enjoying the book up until then. Number 4, gosh, really, really, really freaking drove it home for me. And some of what I expected, but some of what I didn't expect, and even deeper. So Ram V, kudos to you, and also the artist who's been doing a great job, Felipe Andrade, have been doing a fantastic job on that book. And then my personal favorite, what I've been waiting for, my favorite comic book out right now, Ice Cream Man number 25 is coming out, and it's going to be a real big deal. Shout out to Nalo, who got to meet W. Maxwell Prince a few weeks ago and got a copy of Ice Cream Man signed for me. Can't wait to get that in my collection.
Wow.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Ash, I know only one book next week, you said, and then maybe more books the week after that?
Let's see. You're talking about for my books?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not a lot for me coming out. At least not the books that I really want to throw out recommendations. Okay. And the reason I don't recommend certain books is because I understand that even though I love a book, and you may love the book too, some books are more specialized than others. There's certain books that I just feel like these are so great, you should just read them. And then there's other books where I go, I feel like this is kind of a more niche thing. It's not more general audiences. So, and also I realize that I'm kind of snobby. So, anyways, for coming up books, Ascender is the book that doesn't get enough love for me, for my opinion, I should say. I wish Ascender is almost, well, I don't want to say that, but it's. I almost said it's my east of west, but it's probably not that. But it's really dear to me. It just puts me in a happy place when I read. I just love almost everything about it. The way Lemire writes it, it just is what it is. Like, I guess I feel like it's inadequate to call it a Star Wars type book, but it is. It's everything that I love about Star Wars. It's a sci-fi fantasy with a eclectic cast of characters who are kind of have funny, witty banter amongst each other, get in crazy situations. They're off to stop a great evil in the galaxy, and they're, of course, they're super outnumbered, outgunned, have no chance in hell of doing anything. And it's just this. It feels like it's in some ways paint by numbers, but in other ways, like, I'm good with it because, first of all, Lemire's a very competent writer, and the art by Justin Nguyen is just beautiful. And when in comics, I think, especially today's day and age, with, you know, just the lack of good artists in general and the lack of focus on good artists, but also because indies often can't afford a good artist, we've put on the back burner, like, we're like, you know, whatever, we can just have Joe Schmo, this other, doing the art, as long as the writing is solid. And I've heard a lot of modern fans, especially indie fans, talk about that. They're like, I don't care about the art, just give me a good story. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, that's up to you. But I think when you get a good story and the art is amazing, it just elevates it in such a way. Right. And so there's not a lot of books out there, excuse me, I get the hiccups, that you can really do that or say that about. So Ascender, gosh, I don't know. I love that book. And then Noctera is coming out. That's a big popular book. Okay. I know you're not on the Snot Rider bandwagon, but I still am. And I know a lot of people were very happy with it. So I feel comfortable recommending it because it feels like it definitely hits on a mainstream audience. Lots of people very pleased with the book. And then what else is coming out that I'm looking forward to? Oblivion Song, one of the best, my favorite books by, you know, our boy Robert Kirkman, is writing this fantastic, weird sci-fi epic of, like, that feels like The Walking Dead, but it was like, but what if it was an alien invasion? Oh yeah, we get that but it's totally done different than what we're seeing in the Skybound X. It's just out there. It's so imaginative and strange, and I love how alien it feels. Like, he didn't do like, oh, it's funny green men. Like, he made the aliens feel alien. The world feels alien, and so when the characters are interacting with things, I don't know. And it's got great plotting. It's got that great sense of every 6 issues, this crazy story beat, twist things happening, and I absolutely love it. So those are the books that are coming out in the next couple weeks that are on. Oh, and I always miss this one because it's not on the store shelves, but Snow Angels by Jeff Lemire, available only on Comixology, only $2.99 an issue, or you get to read it for free with the Comixology Unlimited subscription. I have been enjoying the hell out of that book. Every issue just seems to get better and better. And the last issue, I was like, holy what? And you want to talk about a guy who doesn't spin wheels. Lemire's pacing is so on point. So much happens in these books, issue after issue. I read the first 4 issues on my channel. My story time's been on hiatus. I've been doing that. That book, just like I said, it continues to get better. And you think, like, he puts a mystery out there of, like, what's going on, like, what's this world, but he's throwing out information constantly. Every issue you learn more and more new things and get revelations. And then you think, oh, this danger is this. Okay, we've dealt with this. Oh, no, it's this. And now what's happening here? And then at the end of every issue, you got a cliffhanger. But the next issue, I assure you, like, answers that cliffhanger. But then he presents something all new. And it just keeps it going. Wait, I talked tonight about how Kirkman was putting on a clinic. Same thing Lemire is doing over there with horror thriller, sci-fi. It's like a sci-fi horror thriller in the vein of, like, the original Terminator. Wow. But with a little bit of Mad Max thrown in, with the whole dystopian kind of wasteland world and, like, the lost technology, and you got people kind of living in this world now that just I don't know. I love the hell out of that book. I really should just read more Jeff Lemire, because 2 of my favorite books are his.
Yeah.
So there's a couple people in the chat. Don't want to feel ignored. Thank you guys, everyone, for being here, especially if you're commenting in the chat. But even if you're just lurking, we love having you here. Venkman, or RDV as he's known, wanted to make sure we did not ignore his theory that he thinks that Owen is destined to kill the serpent, and that's why the serpent is after him. And Marania says she hopes that peanut butter better be safe. And yeah, peanut butter better be safe. So
yep,
definitely, I will be very upset if the serpents get peanut butter.
You better not.
All right, guys. That was another fine show in the wraps. Thank you all for being here. You make this happen. I love talking comics with you guys. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks on Wednesdays. So hopefully this time is not bad for you. And I'm going to give Skip the final words and the final goodbye.
Thank you for coming out. God bless you. Good night.